Now, it's almost impossible for humans to come up with things that are truly random, but randomness in a creative context can be really useful for helping to break us out of, the patterns that we've seen and used before. And it can also be really useful in adding, unique flavors to our sounds. And luckily, in this day and age, we have access to lots of tools that provide actual randomness. So today I'm going to show you my favorite ways to use randomness in a music production context. Let's jump in. Let's say we have a loop like this. And we wanted to add in some vocals, right?
The way you look, the way you touch, the way you feel, yeah. The way you look, the way you touch, the way you feel.
But instead of having, static vocals like this, we want to use vocal chops. So what I like to do is I like to slice to new MIDI track. We're going to create, 32 slices. That's fine. And I'm going to use the MIDI device called Random. So what's cool is when you press a note and activate one of these pads, and then you turn the chance up to let's say 100%, it's going to play a different pad. So if I just keep pressing the same note over and over again, it'll play different pads.
You touch the way you look, the way, yeah.
But where it gets really cool is if we add an arpeggiator before the random MIDI device. So if you add some reverb and some delay and you just hold down a single note over the top of this loop here, check out what we can do. So you can get some really cool variations that way. Or another way that I really like to work is to just choose something very consistent, right? Like maybe an eighth note or something, and create these slices. And what you can see here at the bottom is it says chance 100%. So what I like to do is highlight all of the notes with Command A, and I'm just going to bring this down to maybe like 60% or something. So it's not always going to trigger the slice here. It's going to only trigger it like 60% of the time, which comes up with patterns for you randomly. So we have random chops with random patterns. And what we're also going to do is we're going to record in the output of the MIDI device so that we can actually record the chops that it chooses. So I'm just going to press Command-Shift-T, and we're going to set the input to be the output of our vocal here, right? So we go like this, just make sure that it's record enabled. And what's going to happen here is you're going to start to see it spit out a bunch of these chops. And when we come across something that we like, it's actually going to stay there forever. So now if we liked any of the things that it did, we can just replace the chops that we have here. So if we just turn off random and we, let's say we get rid of this particular clip and we just drag in our chops here, it will play exactly the random ones that it chose. One thing I really like about this is that sometimes the combinations of chops that it chooses can be difficult to play like on pads or like on an actual keyboard. Like for whatever reason, you're probably going to choose things that are close to each other. But this way, it's completely random and it helps you be creative that way, coming up with these combinations you probably wouldn't have. Another really cool way that you can use randomness is to have it come up with chord progressions for you. So the way I'm going to set this up is to use the Chord MIDI device. What this is going to do is add in some more notes on top of any single note that we play, right? So if I just play a C, and I'm going to add in 1 semitone, 2 semitones, 3 semitones, and 4 semitones, which sounds beautiful, doesn't it? But what we're going to do from here is we're going to add in the random MIDI device again and increase the chance to 100% because we want it to be randomized. And we're also going to change the sign here to be, it's basically bi-directional, right? So it's going to either move the note randomly above or below where the initial input was set. And the last thing we're gonna do is open up the scale because we don't want it to just play random notes across the keyboard. We want it to be inside of a specific scale. So in this case, I'm actually going to use the major scale here. So now we're in C. So if I just hold down a single C note, comes up with a chord. Press it again. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna highlight this little section here. I'm gonna press Command-Shift-M and create a new MIDI clip. And I'm going to create a little pattern that I want the chords to be created on top of, right? So maybe we'll just do something very simple like this. So if we duplicate that across the entire clip range, now what's gonna happen is it's going to trigger with a little bit of more of a rhythm. And the next thing I'm gonna do before we let it run and come up with some cool chords is I'm just going to set up another MIDI device to help record the output of those chords so we can keep them when we like them, right? So same thing, we're going to set the input to be from Pigments, which is the synth that's playing all the notes. I'm gonna record enable this new MIDI track, and maybe we can even just call this chords. Okay, so let's let this run for a while and see if it comes up with something cool. Okay, so it came up with this little section here that I like. So I like to just press Command-Shift-T and drag that down just so we can save it. I'm gonna let it run for a little bit more. And then what we're gonna do is just kind of arrange the chords in a way that inspires some creativity. So we've kept track of some of the chords that we thought were cool. And now what I'm gonna do is let's just highlight all of these and we'll just, we'll get them into a group and we will mute them because we don't need them for this particular part. So now I'm just gonna drag the chords, like some of the chords that it created, and see if we can change them around and make them sound cool. Maybe something as simple as this, right? Like, maybe you wanna do the same thing too with like the lead. So instead of playing chords, like you want it to help come up with a melody. So if we create like another new MIDI clip here, and like I just choose, let's do the same thing that we did with the vocal chops. We'll choose, like 8th notes or something. We'll drag it all the way across, and then we'll change the chance once again to like about 60% and let it run a little bit, right? And just record the output and see what kind of melodies it comes up with here. There's a couple of things in there that I actually kind of liked. And like, I didn't come up with that. The randomness came up with that. I just changed it a little bit. So this is also really cool for people who maybe have trouble coming up with melodies or chords. You can just let some of the computer do the work for you. And also you might have some people saying like, why don't you just learn music theory? Why don't you just learn how to play the piano? Well, that takes a long time to get proficient with. And also, I think that there's room to do both. You can have a good musical background and be working on your skill set that way, but also at the same time, making use of all the tools that we have available to, facilitate your own creativity. All right, I hope you guys enjoyed those. And I'd love to hear how you incorporate randomness into your own creative workflow to maybe come up with ideas that you otherwise wouldn't have. And until next time, happy music making, and we'll see you in the next video. Take care. Peace.